So Natasha Cloud is a polarizing player. Polarizing for if she's on your team, polarizing off the court, polarizing on the court because statistically she's terrible. Like, if you look at advanced stats, if you eye test, she's really good. Advanced stats, she is terrible, and she's always been terrible. There is no bigger discrepancy between the advanced stats and what a player does, and what the eye test says in Natasha Cloud. But there's also the fact that
Natasha Cloud didn't just break her silence, she shattered the entire room with a single post that sent shockwaves through the front offices of the WNBA. While the world was obsessed with the arrival of the new rookie sensation, Caitlin Clark, one of the league's most outspoken veterans, was sitting at home, unsigned and absolutely livid. She saw the preferential treatment, the hype, and the massive spotlight shining on an empty chair, while she was left out in the cold. It wasn't just about a roster spot anymore, it was about the perceived disrespect of a league that seemed to have forgotten who paved the way before the cameras arrived. The explosion was coming, and when it finally hit, nobody was safe from the fallout of a player who felt completely erased by the new era.
What a player does, and what the eye test says in Natasha Cloud. But there's also the fact that people just or teams just don't really want to deal with the bullshit that comes along with Natasha Cloud. And look, at the end of the day, she's outspoken about everything. And people are like, oh yeah, they don't want to sign her because she's outspoken about one or two topics. No. She is absolutely outspoken about everything. And look, it's one of those things where it's like, even for example, like a Sophie Cunningham.
The mystery of why a player like Natasha Cloud was sitting on the sidelines to start the season has finally been unraveled, and the truth is far more complicated than a simple salary cap issue. For years, she has been the definition of a polarizing figure, a player who creates a divide between what you see with your eyes and what the data tells the front office. On the court, she looks like a floor general who commands respect, but behind the scenes, the advanced stats tell a story of a player who is statistically struggling to keep up. This massive discrepancy between her perceived value and her actual production created a vacuum that left her without a jersey when the lights came on for the biggest season in the history of the sport.
Is absolutely outspoken about everything. And look, it's one of those things where it's like, even for example, like a Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham is borderline not worth the drama. Except the difference is that she is an advanced stats darling. She is an efficient shooter. She's not a horrifically awful team defender. And she doesn't go out of her way to, do stuff she's not capable of doing. Natasha Cloud is on Threads, hyping up Izzy Harrison, while she is getting into it with injury.
If you look at the raw numbers, the situation becomes even more dire for a veteran trying to prove her worth in a league that is rapidly getting younger and faster. Analysts have pointed out that her advanced statistics are, quite frankly, terrible, and they have been for a very long time. There is perhaps no bigger gap in professional basketball than the one between the Natasha Cloud eye test and the Natasha Cloud spreadsheet. While fans see a gritty defender and a vocal leader, general managers are looking at efficiency ratings that suggest she might be one of the least effective players on the floor. It is a harsh reality that hit her full force when the phone stopped ringing, and the New York Liberty decided they were moving on.
No one is surprised that Izzy Harrison suplexed injuries. I think some of the original ones, I like that edge just before anything happened. And this was after happened. Y'all don't get to talk out your neck then be hurt when someone responds. Again, let's be very, very clear. The two of them got into it. And obviously, Izzy Harrison or injury started it. And then Izzy did the same thing back to Angel. Slapped the ball out of Angel's hands. And then whatever happened during the game, Izzy Harrison decided.
But it wasn't just about the shooting percentages or the defensive rotations, it was about the sheer amount of extra baggage that comes with signing a personality as big as hers. Multiple league insiders have described the situation as a total nightmare for PR teams, who are already struggling to manage the explosion of interest in the league. Teams simply didn't want to deal with the constant stream of controversy and outspoken commentary that follows her every move. When you are a superstar, teams will tolerate almost anything, but when your play starts to dip toward league average, that patience evaporates instantly. She found herself in a position where her voice was louder than her game, and the league responded with a deafening silence.
There's no way a player would be doing that. Could you imagine? Like, this is Draymond type shit, but she's not as good as Draymond. Could you imagine if, I don't know, if after Sophie did the shit she did to JC Sheldon, and like, I think we can all understand, yes, flagrant 2, clearly a flagrant 2. Whether or not you believe Sophie deserved to go after JC Sheldon, it was clearly she clearly escalated the incident. And look, as a fan, you can say one thing. You can't as a player.
The frustration boiled over on social media, specifically on Threads, where Cloud began hyping up moments that many felt were crossing the line into unprofessionalism. While she was unsigned, she was watching games and actively encouraging the kind of high-tension drama that makes coaches pull their hair out. She was seen publicly backing Izzy Harrison during a heated exchange that eventually escalated into a physical altercation. This wasn't just a veteran supporting a friend, it was a player who felt she had nothing left to lose, firing shots from the outside. The optics were disastrous for someone trying to convince a team that she could be a stabilizing presence in a young locker room.
I'm not going to say A'ja Wilson's a PR nightmare. So I think who else could you argue at times? You're like, oh, what the fuck's going on? The whole weird AZ Foot Paige Becker situation. The K-pop stands for those two, but through no fault of their own, can be a bit of a nightmare. But the thing is that they're all worth the nightmare. Sophie Cunningham is as well. The difference is with Sophie Cunningham is that Sophie Cunningham is on the line. Is that she is a much more efficient.
The situation reached a breaking point during a game where Izzy Harrison and Angel Reese got into a physical entanglement that ended with a shocking suplex. Instead of staying neutral, Natasha Cloud jumped online to celebrate that specific energy, essentially cheering on a move that resulted in a flagrant 2 and an ejection. Imagine the chaos if a veteran in the NBA cheered on a suplex during a live game. They would be facing a massive suspension and a PR firestorm. But Cloud seemed fueled by the chaos, posting cryptic messages about being a dragon and claiming she was going to drag everyone down with her. It was a level of aggression that confirmed exactly why teams were hesitant to offer her a contract.
With the eye test, and obviously we all know the advanced stats will make it seem like she's the worst player in the league. And then you've got her out there, I'm not going to say encouraging violence, because I don't think the suplex had happened by the time she had tweeted that she liked the energy, but like encouraged behavior that eventually escalated into a suplex. Like, that is what she did on Threads. And let's be real, these players, they got to get off Threads. They got to get off social media. They got to get social media managers. I don't care. There are people that do it. You don't even need a social media.
What made this even more explosive was the glaring comparison to the way the league protects its new golden child, Caitlin Clark. There is a growing resentment among veterans who feel like the rules are different for the rookies who bring in the ratings. Cloud's absence from a roster while Clark was receiving what many perceived as soft officiating calls created a powder keg of emotion. Vets are watching Clark get protected by the refs while they are out there, literally getting suplexed, without the same level of outrage from the league office. Cloud wasn't just losing it over her own situation, she was losing it over a perceived double standard that she felt was ruining the integrity of the game she loves.
You just have somebody that their job is just to read what you're tweeting and then say yes or no. And if they say no, their decision's final. Players may be pissed, but it's like, nope, this is what you get me signed up to this organization. Teams should have that. They really should. Especially with this guy being a shit show. Like, and that's the thing, like, it's not basketball reasons by Tash Cloud. It's not that she's and activists for certain things, it is that Tash Cloud is a PR, will cause a headache to a PR team. And you have to ask the question of, is she worth it? And at this point in Tash Cloud's career, she's old, she doesn't play defense.
The contrast between Natasha Cloud and someone like Sophie Cunningham is where the real story lies for front offices across the country. Cunningham is often labeled a stats darling, because despite the drama she might bring, she remains an incredibly efficient shooter and a reliable team defender. She is the type of player who is deemed worth the headache, because her production on the court outweighs the noise she makes off of it. Cloud, on the other hand, was trending in the opposite direction. Her efficiency was cratering, while her social media presence was becoming more volatile by the hour. In a business where wins and losses are the only things that matter, the math simply didn't add up for her. The New York Liberty made their stance crystal clear as far back as October, when they signaled that they had no intention of keeping her on the roster. For a player of her stature to go into free agency and find a total lack of interest from the top-tier contenders was a massive wake-up call that she seemingly refused to acknowledge. Instead of tightening up her game and staying quiet, she leaned further into the role of the agitator. It is a dangerous game to play when you are an aging veteran in a league that is currently being flooded with generational talent. She was playing below the standard of her contract, and the market responded by leaving her on the shelf. There is a specific kind of Draymond Green energy, Draymond Green, to the way Natasha Cloud operates, but without the multiple championships to back it up. She is a player who thrives on being the villain, but that role only works if you are indispensable to your team's success. When you start encouraging behavior that leads to ejections and violence on the court, you become a liability that no general manager wants to touch. Cloud's public support of the Izzy Harrison incident was seen by many as the final nail in the coffin for her reputation as a leader. It wasn't just a tweet, it was a signal to every team in the league that she was more interested in the drama than the discipline required to win. Her social media activity has become so problematic that experts are calling for every team to hire full-time employees just to manage player accounts. The Pisces Code and the cryptic threats about dragging people are things that belong in a high school group chat, not the professional world of the WNBA. The lack of a filter has transformed her from a respected activist into a player that teams have to manage rather than coach. This distinction is critical, because in a league with only 12 teams and very few roster spots, nobody has the time or the resources to deal with a veteran who acts like a loose cannon on social media during live games. The shocking truth is that Cloud's unsigned status wasn't a mistake or a clerical error. It was a coordinated decision by teams who valued their locker room culture over her veteran experience. They saw the way she interacted with fans and other players on threads, and decided the risk was too high. While she was busy arguing with people online, the league was moving past her, focusing on the tactical brilliance of the new rookie class and the efficiency of the modern game. She was stuck in a cycle of grievance, feeling like she was being unfairly targeted for her outspoken nature, while the reality was that her play simply didn't justify the noise anymore. When the suplex on Angel Reese happened, it represented a breaking point for the league's image. Many fans called it a soft flagrant 2, but the reality is that the WNBA is trying to move away from the bad girls era and toward a more polished, professional product. Cloud's insistence on hyping up that level of physicality was a direct middle finger to the direction the league is heading. She was essentially advocating for a version of the game that the sponsors and the new fan base aren't interested in seeing. By aligning herself with the energy of an ejection-level foul, she effectively alienated herself from the very people who sign the checks and manage the rosters. The frustration she felt over the Caitlin Clark era is palpable in every word she writes. It's the feeling of a veteran who has spent a decade in the trenches only to see a rookie walk in and get the superstar treatment from day one. But instead of using that as motivation to become a better player, she used it as a reason to lash out. The irony is that by losing her cool over the way Clark is officiated, she only highlighted her own lack of discipline. If you want the league to respect you like a superstar, you have to play like one and carry yourself with the same level of professionalism that the face of the league is expected to maintain. It's been reported that Cloud is a pure nightmare to deal with behind closed doors, a sentiment that has echoed through several organizations she has touched. While some players are worth the trouble because they can single-handedly win you a game, Cloud's declining defensive stats and high foul rate make her a tough sell. She is no longer the lockdown defender that once made her a household name. When you combine a declining skill set with a penchant for starting fires on social media, you get a player who finds herself unsigned while the rest of the world is moving on to the next big thing in women's basketball. The sheer disorganization of her recent career moves has left many wondering if she has any professional guidance at all. Every team needs a no man, someone who can look a player in the eye and tell them that their latest post is going to cost them millions of dollars in potential earnings. Cloud seems to be surrounded by people who encourage her worst impulses, leading to a situation where she is tweeting through games instead of preparing for them. The league is becoming more corporate and more scrutinized than ever before, and there is no room left for the kind of chaotic energy that she brings to the table on a daily basis. Even her most loyal supporters are starting to question the dragon persona and the Pisces code talk that it's hard to defend a player who seems to be actively rooting for the escalation of violence on the court. Whether or not you believe the suplex was a flagrant 2, the fact remains that a veteran player should know better than to celebrate it on a public forum. It sends a message to the younger players that this behavior is acceptable, which is the exact opposite of what a veteran leader is supposed to do. She has traded her credibility for likes and retweets, and the cost was her standing in the professional community. The advanced stats don't lie, and they show a player who is struggling to stay relevant in a league that is evolving at light speed. Her defensive win shares have plummeted, and her offensive efficiency is among the lowest for guards with her usage rate. While the eye test might show a player who is still in it, the reality is that she is being outplayed by younger, cheaper, and less controversial talent. The Natasha Cloud Liberty's decision to move on from her was the ultimate litmus test. If a team with championship aspirations and a need for veteran depth doesn't want you, it's time to look in the mirror. But instead of reflecting on her game, Cloud went on the offensive, targeting the fans and the league itself. She claimed that people were talking out of their necks and that they didn't understand the energy she was bringing. This kind of defensive posture is a classic sign of a player who knows the end is near, but isn't ready to go out quietly. It's a sad turn for a career that had so much promise and impact. As the season progresses and the Caitlin Clark phenomenon continues to grow, the gap between the old guard and the new era will only widen. Players like Natasha Cloud are finding themselves at a crossroads where they must either adapt to the new professional standards or be left behind entirely. The unsigned period was a warning shot from the league, a clear message that the old way of doing things is no longer acceptable. You can't be an activist on one hand and an instigator of on-court violence on the other. The cognitive dissonance is too much for modern sports franchises to handle, especially with so much money on the line. The reality of the situation is that Natasha Cloud is a player out of time. She is trying to use a 2010s playbook in a 2024 world. The league has moved beyond the need for enforcers who cheer from the sidelines on social media. It needs stars who can elevate the product and maintain a level of decorum that attracts global brands. Her outburst over the absence of respect during her unsigned period was less about Caitlin Clark and more about her own fear of becoming irrelevant. It's a fear that many veterans face, but few have handled it with as much public volatility as she has in recent months. In the end, the suplex, the threads posts, and the advanced stats all point to the same conclusion: the baggage has finally outweighed the talent. Until she can prove that she is a net positive for a team's culture and its box score, she will continue to find herself on the outside looking in. The WNBA is no longer a small, tight-knit community where you can get away with being a pure nightmare. It is a global business, and in business, the people who cause the most headaches for the least amount of return are always the first ones to be let go. Her career is a cautionary tale for the next generation of players. Ultimately, the Natasha Cloud saga is a reminder that the game always comes first. No amount of social media presence or outspoken personality can save a player whose production is falling behind the curve. As the league continues its meteoric rise, the players who will thrive are those who can balance their personal brand with the discipline required to compete at the highest level. Cloud's loss of it over her unsigned status and the new league dynamics might have felt good in the moment, but it may have cost her the very thing she was fighting for: a permanent seat at the table in the league she helped build.